And once we get into the research writing process, the researchers will refer to the participants of the focus group discussion by default as the expert from your specific country. So to represent your country. Is this fine by you? Other experts we engaged explicitly requested to be identified on their individual professional basis, which we can also follow should it be explicitly requested. Are we fine with the default that you are recognized by your country as a representative of your country? Thank you, Dr. Rose. And Attorney Lily, you're fine with this as well?
Yes, but I think we sent an email Gail, earlier that another office, our office for planning, can provide the more sufficient information with respect to some of the queries here. We cannot delve on some details. However, our work that we do in internationalization always ties up with the Sustainable Development Goals. This has been the journey that we have been taking in terms of our internationalization. Thank you.
Of course, thank you, Dr. Attorney Lily. Dr. Roseanne, you raised your hand.
Well, I mean, I'm not an expert in everything, but if I see that there are things which I would need to check or confirm with my colleagues, that can be done. So I don't see an issue here as regards, I mean, my part.
Okay, thank you for that. I actually now look towards our researcher Anemone. So this is any clarification on this point? If none, we can proceed. We're good. Okay. All right, thank you, everyone. So I hand over the floor to our researcher Anemone to facilitate the focus group discussion. I will take this opportunity to ask to be excused. My camera will be off, but I am here for support in any other way. We have another few other matters and one focus group discussion happening at the same time. So I'll also attend to this. Anemone, please.
Thank you, Miguel, and welcome again. My name is Anemone, as you already know, and thank you for making time today for our discussion. This focus group has been conducted from the Asia and Europe Foundation, and the study's purpose is to map the higher education policy in ASEAN countries towards SDGs. I will be leading today's discussion. My most important role will be to ask you a few questions and allow you to express and share your knowledge and experience. It is absolutely fine if you are not totally aware of the facts and the figures of whatever discussion happens. You're free to give us informations or additional informations later on, or you're free to say, no, I don't know. That's perfectly fine in this discussion. And the focus group will primarily focus on 3 core areas today. That is the application of sustainable development goals in your country's education context. That will be the first focus area. The second focus area I would be discussing on the higher education policy towards the sustainable development, but it's more towards to understand the links between national policies and university actions towards SDGs. And the third focus area will be the university missions. With that note, I would like to understand from your experience and knowledge, if you would like to share some of the policy instrument, for instance, the specific policy tools in specific to your country. Whoever is at ease to start, you're most welcome. Dr. Rose, would you like to?
Okay, well, we work like this. So there's the ministry, and then there is the authority. Although we fall within the ministry, we are autonomous from the Ministry of Education and Research. And as an authority, we are in charge of writing the policy for further and higher education. So let me explain even the difference. If I take too long, just tell me. Okay. Yes. By further, I understand awards and qualifications, again, I will specify the difference between the two, up to level 5 of the Bologna process. Bologna process, everyone is knowledgeable of that? Okay, so up to level 4, that would be a further education institution. From level 5 upwards, it's considered as a higher education institution. So this is the first distinction. Between an award and a qualification, we understand an award is a course where there are a number of ECTSs which do not make up a full qualification. So I could have a course with 10 ECTSs. That's fine. It's a course at that level, but it's only an award. A qualification is a full qualification, meaning that you need a certain amount for a diploma, a certain amount for a bachelor's, a certain amount for master's, and then a doctorate. Okay, so we deal with this. So we issue licenses, we make quality assurance of the licensees, and we monitor what is happening. And most of all, we give support. Because of all this, we are in charge of formulating the strategy. Because we know we work with it, we touch it every day. So we know what the main pillars for the strategy have to be. In fact, if need be, I will share, I'll try to share even some pillars which we believe are important for the strategy of up to 2030. And we believe that they are relevant for not just Malta or Europe, but they are relevant for even Asia, for the whole of the Asian countries, because they're very rarely, they speak about sustainability, they speak about fair education, they speak about education for everyone. So I think they are relevant to everyone. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you so much. And maybe I'll have few questions regarding those pillars around the strategy. I'll come back to you and maybe hear from you, Lily, now.
Out of curiosity, can you please repeat the question? Because I'm looking here at the question number 1. Were you referring to this on the application of the SDGs?
That's right. If you could mention some of the specific policy tools that your country has concerning the SGD frameworks.
As I initially contextualized in my with respect to my inputs in this FGD, our planning office would be in a better position to present more detailed explanation, especially with respect to the policy. I can speak, however, on our ongoing thrust with internationalization of Philippine higher education, which has a policy framework issued since 2016. And now the transnational education law also that was issued in 2019. The significance of the law is that from a policy framework that prioritizes internationalization on a sectoral level, meaning for higher education, with the national law, it now elevates internationalization and transnational higher education as priorities and national strategy, and a major national strategy to modernize higher education in the Philippines, to improve capacities of human resources development, including lifelong, especially on lifelong learning, and to enhance partnerships with other higher education systems so that we can develop new innovative programs in emerging fields. Okay? It is a very good platform for us. It's a legal basis and a legal tool for us that can, we hope, can truly propel and advance many of our efforts that we've been doing on the sectoral level. So why is the two policies and laws important? because it addresses primarily the SDG 4, which is also access to quality education. And the law was created to expand access of Filipinos and those who will be studying in the Philippines for quality education that has been developed through international partnerships, benchmarked on international standards and practices. What is the most difficult aspect in applying SDG in our country? Should I answer that also?
Sure.
And this one,
Following
this one is a
Yes.
this one is a perception. I do not have yet the data on this one, but hopefully we can have the data. I think the awareness on the SDGs in our universities are not yet very high. It's not yet very high. And I think the role of universities in the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals are not yet fully internalized, if I may say. Oh, well, I know for a fact because we work in our international fields, and every time that we have this discussion on the international level, we always say how the universities and higher education is very important in all the 17 goals. But this is not to say that our universities have done good work on this one. They have done many good work on this one. But on a national level, this is something that our data needs to capture. We need to capture this one because in our assessment, in our Corelli-Simons QS assessments, in our endeavors in some international rankings, specifically the Times Impact rankings and the World Universities with Real Impact, including the UCI, the University Metric, the Philippines has scored very well in the areas of inclusiveness, in the areas of community engagement and social responsibility. Very high, very high. And let me also add that in terms of access, which is in SDG 4, in the Philippines, higher education in public tertiary education is already free. So that means we are giving access to about 1.5 million Filipino students who can study in these public institutions. Overall, we have close to 2 million Filipinos who are receiving also subsidies and support from the national government. And this would include both public and private students in studying in the Philippine universities. We have, by the way, about close to 4 million students in the Philippines. Okay.
Very, very interesting facts and figures, Lily, there from the Philippines. And it's very interesting and insightful to see that how Philippines is progressing, especially in terms of quality and equality and free education, which has been advantage to the advanced economies in the world so far. But it's good to see Philippines is moving into that direction.
It's difficult. It's difficult. We're in our 4th year of implementation, I think, of the free education. It's been very challenging, but we are committed to fully implement this and truly provide access to many of our students, especially those who are in the very challenged sectors. But it's difficult.
Thank you so much for those insights. Dr. Rose, would you like to just extend your explanation from where we left those pillars, like there are a few pillars in the national strategy, and also what has been the most effective or challenging for application of these SDGs in your country? I think you're muted, so I'm not able to hear you.
I need to stand up because it's part of pillar 7, I think, on wellness. We have to. I've been sitting here for an hour.
Sure.
I have a PowerPoint, if allowed, which is very visual, so I can share it with you.
Sure.
But I need to see share screen. Let me see how it's done. Let me see.
Or you could email us that and we can continue with the
Yes,
next.
okay,
slide.
excellent, excellent. Which email, please? Which email?
You could send it to Miku from where you got an invitation. Migul.
Okay, from where I received. Okay, okay. So
Or I will send my email address on the chat.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, for additional information that you could, or documents you'd like to send us, you can send it to arc@asef.org, or you can respond to our current
Okay.
email exchanges we have already.
So, okay, let me send it here. Okay.
Or you can send
now-
it in the chat. We can document that as well. That's a great
Okay,
idea.
I'll try. I'll try. I am not very, very, very technical. I'll try. I'll try.
Thank you.
Yeah, so moving on now, would you like to share some of the activities in which your government is most supporting the higher education institutions? For example, in many countries so far, we have seen that education, research, governance, and partnerships are some of the areas. So is it similar in your country as well?
Kindly repeat, Yossi, please.
Okay, I just wanted to understand which are the area of the university activity that needs more support from in your country. And some of the examples that we have seen so far is the education, research, governance, and partnerships. These are the areas where government is giving support or the universities are seeking support. Is it similar in your country?
Well, yes, there is support also in terms of governance and raising capacities of our leaders, academic leaders. We have several ongoing projects on this one. Some support from Temasek Foundation, internally generated support also for our university presidents. There is also the area though that we need more support is, I think, in terms of research. And when I was looking into the SDGs also and how capacities are being built on some universities that I have engaged with, they lack, in fact, the knowledge on that really the basis also of the SDGs research. So for example, like in SDG 1, in terms of poverty, they are not very aware of students, of their students who are what we call first generation students. And therefore, I think the way that we can also improve capacities and programs on SDG is for them to direct them towards research that is very relevant to support needed program interventions to meet the targets in the SDGs.
Thank you so much for that. Rose, would you like to add to that?
Did you receive I sent you an email with the attachment.
I think my colleague Miguel would be able to answer that.
Yes, we received. Would you like me to share it now?
Do you mind,
Yeah,
please?
sure.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Sharing it now.
Okay. Right. So this.
Oops, sorry. Yeah. Go ahead. I need to reshare. Sorry about that.
It's okay. Okay, so that's obviously us. Next slide, please. Okay, so the context is, first of all, The challenges which further and higher education is facing, mainly we tried to analyze and explore the emerging policy context for education. So taking into account demographics, technological, socio-economical, political, and environmental trends, because they all impinge. I mean, education is in a silo. It is impacted by all these factors. So then we tried to map relevant EU and national policy developments, because again, we can't just invent a strategy out of context. So we need to see what EU policies are and what national developments there are in order to be able to identify issues of potential opportunity and concerns. Then we benchmarked water's performance in relation to key EU indicators, for example, early school leavers, lifelong learning. And we few stakeholder consultations undertaken last year, because before drafting the policy, we had a lot of consultations with our stakeholders. I mean, we weren't as broad as possible. Even now that the strategy has been drafted, we are going to open it again finally for the last time for any other feedback which people may deem it important. Next slide, please. So the current and emerging trends and drivers of key relevance are mapped with the aim of flagging opportunities, the challenges, and the threats in the local context, which are demographic, for example, aging population, which I think is a phenomenon, is not just Malta. We know we have an aging population, so we need to keep that in mind. The socio-economic. Some people say that the divide in economy, in social economy, in social strata is getting bigger, meaning that some rich people are getting richer, and maybe a part is getting of the poor is getting poorer. So we need to take care of that and see that it will not impinge on education, because everyone has a right for education. Then there is the technological. People again speak of the technological divide, and this came out more clearly during the pandemic, when we wanted to go online, and we could realize that not what we take for granted, that everyone has internet, everyone has a laptop, was not really actually the truth. So we have to keep that in mind. The geopolitical, the changes which are happening around us in the world. I mean, without getting into the dilemmas I mean, the present war, we all know that it's impinging on the entire world, I think. And environmental. We know even the last meeting which there was in the country, I forgot where it was being held. I mean, the global warming and all the issues which come with it. So we have to pay attention even to this phenomenon which is happening around us, which we're touching and experiencing every day. Next slide, please. So the aim of the exercise was to work closely with key players in the co-design to achieve effective alignment with national and international strategies and the active engagement of all stakeholders. Then the exercise was implemented through surveys and consultations. So we didn't just write the policy. We distributed surveys and we had a lot of consultations, and I said, and the result, including the vision, guiding principles, priorities, and objectives, provided an important basis for 6 priority areas, namely social dimension in participation and access, educational attainment, retention, and completion. What do we understand by this? We may get a number of students who go for further education and higher, they start courses and for some reason stop midway. So we need to take care of that too. So that's why the retention and the completion. the relevance of teaching, learning, and research, quality and transparency, digital and green transition, and then finally, internationalization and mobility of students, making it more possible. Next slide, please. So the vision, our vision is towards a dynamic and more resilient knowledge ecosystem by 2030, based on an innovative, inclusive, quality-driven further higher education sector, inspiring individuals throughout their educational and life experience to develop relevant skills. As we all know, that 2023 is going to be dedicated to skills that allow them to contribute as community members and active citizens towards a fair, digital, and green economy. I think this slide summarizes what the strategy is all about. The next slide. So the guiding principles would be context, Maltese context, identity, cultural heritage, and language shall be a central element. Malta shall maintain high. Sorry.
Thank you so much for this presentation. I think for the next follow-up questions, most of this will be answered, but let's just move on with in consideration of the time, perhaps I would like to move on with the next question at this. Sorry for that interruption. I have to complete this. So in terms of, thank you, Dr. Rose, for giving me that elaborate presentation. And there are many details in it. I think we will highly appreciate that when we analyze the data. Moving on with our discussion now, I would also like to understand from you, what do you think are the most effective policy instrument? As I could see in Dr. Rose's slide, some of them that were highlighted already. And now, Dr. Lily, if you could just mention some of the policy instruments for encouraging higher education institutions to tackle SCD and why.
I'm not yet a doctor, Yossi. I'm happy
My
being a
apologies.
lawyer. No, it's okay. I would be honored to be a lawyer, a doctor, but not yet. Yes, in terms of a policy instrument, what would be the easiest and most difficult to implement, and what would actually be effective in policy instrument that could, drive them towards the SDG. We are the ministry, so as a ministry, the Commission on Higher Education has supervision over all higher education institutions, both public and private, and that's over 2,000 institutions in the Philippines, higher education institutions of varying levels of quality. The most important policies instrument for us is therefore a developmental approach on how we can provide also incentives in desired outcomes that we would want. And the Commission has done this by providing many grants and awards for capacity building, for faculty development, for infrastructure development, including developing what we call the smart campuses. Because at the time of the pandemic, there was an immediate, immediate demand for advancing digital transformation, and the Philippine government granted to 52 institutions, public institutions, grants of up to $500,000 to establish smart campuses, set up the LMS, technology, etc. Connection, which is also very important. And then, but the most difficult challenges really was amidst the pandemic, and I'm speaking here in the context already of the pandemic, there were just so many things that they have to do all at the same time. There was the digital transformation, there was capacitating them in the new technology, the professors, the teachers, and the students. Of course, the threat to public health, and then at the same time to ask them to also create, to drive their programs, their process, their policies towards certain goals that we have in the SDG. It was it was there was really too much. They're not complaining, but we do see the but we've seen how it was really difficult on the ground itself to implement many of these initiatives that we've been driving on. But overall, it was really incentivizing the good programs that will now also assist them in rising and overcoming all of these challenges.
Dr. Rose, would you like to mention which are the most important policy instrument in Malta?
Well, as I was explaining, I agree with Lily that yes, the pandemic brought about a lot of challenges. It was technology on one side, and fine, even those who had the full capacities for technology, it was also a matter of quality, because obviously we had to say yes to going online, but then we had to see that quality was maintained, because that was very important, right? So that was one of the main challenges. I would say that with the pandemic, certain things came out more clearly. As I said, not just when it comes to accessibility and availability, but also the divide, technological divide, the social divide. And I think those are challenges which we're facing. Another issue which we may have, being a very small island, and with the influx of refugees, and not just refugees, people who are deciding to come and live here. Recently, it was found out that I think it was 1/5 of the Maltese population is made up of foreigners. Foreigners in the sense that these are not Maltese born. They came to live in Malta. And that's proving to be a bit of a challenge, especially for those people who do not speak neither Maltese nor English. So yes, that's another challenge which we're facing, which we're trying to deal with, even when we are drafting the policy, that education needs to be accessible to everyone if possible.
Thank you. And perhaps this could also highlight some of the national and the local challenges context, because as we spoke about the pandemics, so how is SGD framework actually being seen as in the national and the local context? Maybe you could just elucidate with the help of the pandemic example.
Pardon, sorry.
How did the pandemic help to contextualize the national and the local and the international context relating to the Sustainable Development Framework?
In the sense that, obviously, we were still in contact with our partners and stakeholders, and we're watching even, we are very much in contact with the European Commission, obviously, and Council of Europe, and the other, obviously, branches which come out of it. So we were watching what was happening in the other European countries, so we could kind of live up and join in and see the initiatives which were being taken. So we could follow on those lines. I don't know whether am I answering your question. But even locally, when we went online, obviously we could see who had access and who did not. Then this wasn't just about having a laptop at home and having internet. It was about, for example, even when parents had to work from home, right? And there are, imagine, two parents and a child, and the two parents are working online, and the child was having lessons online. So practically, that family, which is, I mean, the minimal family, needed 3 devices. So that was another issue which came up. So I think now, keeping all this in mind, we have to cater and see what needs to be done on these lines too. So this strategy has to go down, has to even include these nitty-gritties, I would say. It's not just going national, but we have to see even these little details which we need to take care of too.
Thank you. Lily, would you like to add to that?
Yes, in the context of the pandemic, I think one thing that was very apparent, or which rose, at least if I may say, within the higher education sector, was the partnership. So we always termed our efforts in the higher education sector during the time, we called it bayanihan. Bayanihan is a Filipino word that means working together. In the words of the chairman, he said, by coming together, we can do more. So at the height of the pandemic, or during the closures, and then the transition into the online platform, and with that number of Philippine institutions, over 2,000 institutions, close to 4 million students, that the first issue was the continuity of learning. That was March. At that time, the students have to graduate. There were already students that were set to graduate, and we had to force the school closure. But we needed them to graduate. We needed them to complete their studies. The commission immediately set forth massive capacity building on what is termed as flexible learning. But we do recognize that there are institutions in the Philippines that are bigger, we were really more set and prepared for situations like this. And they were already doing many of the flexible learning and hybrid learning. So we set a bayanihan training wherein the big universities helped out also with the smaller institutions to build capacities of the teachers to create the learning continuity. We came out with a shared memorandum order on flexible learning that would at least, put into place and to ensure the quality of education that's going to be delivered on an online platform. In the Philippines, it's still traditional. When we do distance education, that requires a special permit, that requires special authority from the commission. But because of the need to go online, so we just have to let everybody do it. But then we needed to ensure quality, and that was when we came up with many of these orders and capacity building on flexible learning. At the same time, we also assisted the universities when there was easing because of the vaccination, and that on the reality that students need to go back because of their internship, especially the ones in the health programs, they needed to go back to the clinics for their real for their practicum. We assisted the universities to come up with safety measures in their institutions and in the training premises so that students can come back. We have a very high success rate. There was almost zero infection among professors and teachers during this time that we opened in 2021 some of the programs for the conduct of their internships and their practical. So in a way, we assisted in terms of access, ensuring the quality, and then of course the the health and well-being of our students. And I don't know whether this is also relevant, Dr. Yossi, but during the time of the pandemic, this also saw the rise of many of our universities in the Times Impact rankings and the World University rankings with real impact. So I don't know how they did it, but they were able to submit their programs to the two ranking bodies to also show and to showcase the efforts that they have been doing in the areas that are covered by the Sustainable Development Goals, especially with the impact rankings. Because the impact rankings, you need to submit programs in at least 4 of the SDG goals. So so they were able to do that, and I think that is also very significant in terms of, as in the time that we may not be limited, we may have limited mobility, our universities were deepening also or deepening and relearning all their contributions to sustainable development.
Thank you so much, Lily, for that explanation. And it's very interesting to see that both the countries, Malta and Philippines, are very much committed to the SCDs in their higher education sector. And we have seen what kind of policy instruments are being used in both the countries, and also the challenges. And there is a similar challenges and that I have seen. And one of the insights that I was trying to read from your discussion was from the global and the local context, which made that online education and the higher education sector is the common theme between both the countries. So thank you so much for bringing that nuance of the national and the global context. Moving on to our next discussion topic.
Sorry, Anumani, I think Rosia wants to comment on this, and then can I have a question afterwards?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Rose, please.
Yes, I think another issue which we can't disregard is the well-being, the mental well-being of students, but not just students, because sometimes people mention that students went through a dark time and they were psychologically affected with the pandemic, but it wasn't just the students. It was the teachers and the lecturers and the administration. I mean, imagine running an entity and you're not sure if the quality is being maintained, if students are getting the best service possible, if teachers are preparing enough, if teachers need help. So I think that was another huge challenge which we had to face. And we're still, I think, having the repercussions of that time, because certain data shows that some students and some even teachers or lecturers or administrators are still carrying the brunt of the pandemic, and they are still under kind of the effect of that time. Even younger children, they lost like 2 years of their first years in education. They lost them because they couldn't go to school. So I think this was another huge challenge, which may have repercussions all along, but which we really need to take care of. Thank you.
Rekha, yes.
Thank you so much for sharing. So I have a question related to the policy tools that you were discussing. Both of you mentioned, I think, the rankings, especially this new type of rankings, the impact ranking and the green metrics in Philippines. So do you use these as policy tools? If yes, why? And if no, why not?
Yes, we use them as a reference. The data that we obtain from this, especially in the Times Impact rankings, are very important for us to see the performance of the university's contributions on a national scale. Okay, true, the universities do it on their own. There is that clear mandate, though, to our internationalization policy and framework, that builds on internationalization as not just, not just on the rankings or building quality, but I think the overall goal really towards that is producing or developing global citizens and strengthening our ASEAN community in ASEAN citizenship. That is in our policy framework in itself. Thus, the data that is accumulated in the Times Impact Rankings help the Commission in our policy making function to come up also with programs and policies, especially in terms of the metric of performance. So we're not just measuring now, okay, how many of your graduates have graduated? How many of your students, I mean, have successfully graduated? What's important is that how are they also gainfully employed or pushed towards that employment? What would be their contribution also in terms of not just research in the citations, but research with impact. So it is slow. I am not saying that it's happening, but I think there is that that awareness right now that we have to go beyond also mere numbers, but also ensuring that everything that we do in the in the university's research, instruction, and social engagement gets a real impact in the communities.
Thank you very much. Is there any more question? Okay, so I'll move on to the final topic of discussion now then. This topic will be discussing the university activities that are most targeted by the national government. And I would like to understand from you, which activities do you think would be the most important for the national government to support in order to contribute towards the Sustainable Development Goals? Lily, would you like to go first? It's muted.
Or Rose?
Lily.
Okay, thank you. So which of these would be most important for the national government to support? Can't I choose everything? COVID taught us everything can just come and go anytime. So I think we just have to really do as much as we can. And these are all very important. I cannot even rank it. Research, as I said, is very important. Data is very important. We cannot move forward without without the data, the data and the factual basis for empirical basis for this. Education and teaching, as highlighted also by Dr. Rose, it's very important. It's not just also about the students, it's also about the faculty. We've seen some cases of dire cases here, and I agree, wellness and health and wellness is very important, including people in the ministry, not just in the university. We need to be well also, the government. And then governance. Governance, I think, is very key in the SDG. We cannot really put forth many of our efforts in the SDG if the leader, the university leader, the community leader, and even government will not act on this, on a whole of government approach and a whole of nation approach. And of course, partnerships. And as I said, I think these are all Dr. Yossi, partnerships and community engagement. So there is nothing that is most important, but I think all of them should really be taken up with priorities and it's really imperatives. But after all, how many years do we still have? 8 more years in the SDGs. Yes.
Yes, thank you so much. And are there anything that is not listed here or that has been prioritized by your government?
Yes, I would add something else. They're all, I totally agree with Lily. They are all important, and I can't really put which is first and which comes second. But I would definitely add ethics and values.
Okay.
There are two things which are being given a huge importance
Mm.
because today, more than before, ever before, we are understanding the importance of these two elements. Being ethical in teaching and learning and research and data and everything, and values and education. And by values, I mean all kinds of values. And I think these should be given a huge importance. They are being mentioned by the Commission, by the Council of Europe, but by ENCA, by ARC. So I think, and I really believe, even personally, especially in the word values, I think they should be given huge importance.
Thank you. My next question would be, how is your national government working with the universities in monitoring and evaluation and their contribution towards the SDGs? We have given some examples, but we would like to have more in-depth discussions around this and any other. Lily, you're starting.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I thought Dr. Rose was going to
Okay,
answer.
okay.
Okay.
Well, being the authority in charge of higher education, fine. Let me give you just a small background. In Malta we have one state national university, but then we have three private ones, and then the others are higher education institutions, but they can still offer doctoral degrees, up to doctoral degrees. So we issue the licenses, and we make it a point that we conduct quality assurance audits at least every 5 years. And we do two types of audits, the institutional audits and program audits. We have just started doing the letters. The latter, I mean program audits. And this is how we try to, we see that quality is maintained, because obviously we believe that obvious quality is very important. And this is how we do it. So even from time to time, we do like spot checks, we visit, we see what's happening, not to breathe down their necks, which is very, we give them a leeway to work, but to see that things are going well and to give support, because even conducting visits, we show that we want to support the entities, universities, but not just universities, even these higher education institutions, which play a very important role in the Maltese educational system.
Thank you. Lily?
Here's the question: what is the role of our institution, Dr. Yossi?
Yes, how are the national government working towards the university in monitoring and evaluation of contribution towards SDGs?
I envy Dr. Rose because she was only mentioning like 3 universities. I have over 2,000 higher education institutions, including the campuses. Well, we are a country of 110 million Filipinos with 7,000, 640 something islands. So if you will see campuses in remotest islands, that is how we also address access. But I think more than the number of institutions, our main concern is really the proliferation of substandard programs. So so don't mind the numbers, because I think that very well is needed because of the huge number of wow, 600,000 in our metro alone, in the capital, Metro Manila. I think we have like what, 12 million, 18 million. So I envy you, Dr. Rose. If we have only 3 institutions, I think yes, I'll be having coffee every afternoon. I have long coffee breaks. So how do we monitor this? Thankfully, there is a technology. I think through technology we can really better monitor and gather the information and information of that we have of in all on our institutions. So we have learned how to use um, database dashboards, creating dashboards. Surveys are very quick to be done right now. We just really put them on Google Docs and they all answer. We have numerous webinars, capacity building, as I say. And when we let them register, we tell them to submit also data that is needed for us. Just last month we finished a scoping survey of the level of internationalization of our institutions across the regions. We will be getting the complete data by hopefully by anytime soon by this month. So we have at least a picture of our landscape where interventions can be done. In the Philippines, in the Commission on Higher Education, we have 16 SHED regional offices. They do the monitoring of the institutions in their respective regions. The central office comes up with the policy, with the policies, standards, and guidelines, and the regional offices ensures that all the standards that are issued per discipline and program are complied with by the institutions. But I like Dr. Rose your direction wherein you get to monitor them like every 5 years. I think we should have somewhat of a more regular one like that, and we can see from where they are from the start and what they have developed 5 years hence, and that should be based also on the business plan that they have submitted or the development plan that they have submitted also to the Commission. Thank you.
Yeah, Lily, you also mentioned about the external and global ranking about the universities. Are those also used as a monitoring or evaluating or ranking of the institute in your country as a tool?
What we did was to integrate it in what we call an instrument to measure performance of public institutions. So we set, because we have state universities, there are about 114 of them. State universities and colleges, half of that are universities, half are colleges. So we set up an instrument that we call the leveling instrument, and we just recently revised it and integrated many of the metrics that we have seen in both in the QS and in the Times Impact Rankings and the SDGs, as they are also aligned with the SDGs. So we're doing that. We have already put that on the consultation with our institutions. They have accepted it. Many of them are already doing the assessment, the QS assessment star rating. Again, I need to emphasize that we are doing that just so we get into the rankings or anything. It is actually a push for our universities so that they get to measure up with international benchmarks, because our local benchmarks, of course, they are good at it, but sometimes it makes you a little bit complacent if you just constantly look into your local standards. So it's good, especially also in the era of ASEAN integration, that we look into our regional standards and measures.
Thank you so much for that explanation. Rose, would you like to add anything more to this?
Yes, yes, we are small, but believe me, I don't have time for coffee except we're a small team. and demands are huge. I mean, bearing in mind the small size of the island, it's amazing how many licenses we have. In fact, we have over 160 licensed entities, and we keep getting these applications from from people outside from away from the island to open an institution here. And sometimes they're face to face, sometimes they're hybrid, sometimes they're online. So we don't use rankings. We try to avoid that. However, the size of the island makes it very competitive for the different entities. So they would have to maintain high levels. So apart from us checking on them, to get students, they would need to keep a high level of quality. But we don't use rankings. No, we don't. And we don't even go there even in our strategy. We are just after everyone as much as possible, giving quality education to everyone.
Thank you so much. Miko, please let me know if we are running out of time. I have one or two burning questions which I would like to question. We recognize that internationalization has come up in our discussion quite often in the last 1.5 hours almost. So I would just wanted to understand how our internationalization of the higher education is tied to the sustainable development goal in each of your country. Who would like to go? Anyone, whoever is comfortable. Again, you're muted, so if you could unmute yourself, please. Thank you.
Okay. I've been in this job for like 10 years. So in this position, initially when we started with internationalization, we came up with a policy framework. The impetus there was the ASEAN Economic Community integration. And of course, the building of the higher education common space in ASEAN. That was 2016. At the time, I think the Sustainable Development Goals was also presented or it's been issued. Now that we have achieved that level of awareness on having a global orientation and setting us off in terms of international benchmarks for our universities' performance. What we try to drive in our university is that we use internationalization or international education programs towards attainment of many of the targets of the Sustainable Development Goals. We always emphasize that Goal 17 is the most important goal for us because it's partnership by the goals. And that is something that we have learned during the pandemic. I think that has really been emphasized so much during the pandemic. At the time that the borders were closed and we had national lockdowns. It was the international community that came to our immediate assistance, that we have all of these webinars, as I said, in many of the programs, and focusing on how are we meeting the challenges in terms of learning continuity and building capacities of e-learning and flexible learning. So we have evolved our internationalization policies, our own strategies to ensure that through global partnerships and through global partnerships we are able to develop programs that address many of our priorities in the SDGs. For one, we have also created the coil, the level coil in the Philippines is also within the local institutions. Our coil here helps out the smaller universities or institutions, especially in Mindanao, etc., in all of those areas, so that those that have stronger partners get to be part of that global classroom. If there is an online lecture exchange of professors, we make sure also that the universities in Mindanao, especially in Mindanao, in Region 8, where it is more typhoon prone, they are also included in these sessions. We call it our innovation laboratory, or innovation laboratory for global education and digital citizenship. So that's one effort that we are doing in our internationalization. I can send you, Dr. Yossi, our paper on this one. I'm sure it was written more beautifully than how I'm explaining it right now.
Thank you. Thank you. And Dr. Rose, would you like to add how your internationalization process or the agenda is tied to the Sustainable Development Goals?
Okay, we have a lot of mobility with EU countries. Obviously, we try to tap on funds to do this. There are student exchanges, which is also very helpful. But more than this, because there is some courses are hybrid or even online, obviously this opens doors to any students who would want to join in certain courses provided by licensed providers. We also have a huge influx, I would say, in proportion per capita, of students coming to study in Malta. I mean, we get European students, but even students from Asia, from China. It could be that English here, which is the second international language, is very strong. So courses are carried out in English, and I think this is a huge asset because it helps internationalization a lot. Because if you can communicate in English, then you know that you can come and study here, and I think that's quite a huge advantage in this regard.
Thank you. Very interesting to see different internationalization approaches, but again, there are a lot of similarities, and it's ultimately achieving the same goal. And a very interesting aspect is that they are also tied to the SCDs. So that is fascinating to understand, and I have that. Now, one final burning question from me is that how do you see your higher education policies landscape in the next 5 to 8 years in each of the country?
I think I have a presentation somewhere also on this one. But wow, that's how do I put it? We like Dr. Rose, like Malta, we have what we call a national ambition. Ambition natin 2040, or our ambition 2040. Where the Philippines by 2040 will become a prosperous country, where a highly trust society, and we have a secure and prosperous, healthy lives. I think all of this will also attach to the sustainable development, whereas higher education in all of this. Higher education is very key in terms of the innovation as a driver for establishing the knowledge society, which will propel the prosperity part of our national development. Education also is important because human resources is important, very key to that prosperity, to that goal of prosperity. Are Filipinos who are educated, who are healthy, whose qualifications are recognized also internationally, and who are also lifelong learners. So you'll see that is this may sound a little bit dramatic, but that is one reason that makes me wake up every morning and try to do things a bit better than how I did it the previous time. So it's difficult to work in government, and I'll stop at that. but these are the national aspirations that drive us, and that's also where we want to live. So in 5 years, I hope all of this will be in place. We have, put the pillars and the building blocks for a knowledge society to increase our literacy rate, to provide opportunities, especially to those who have, who are most challenged, who have less in lives. Because I believe there is no poverty, only lack of opportunities. So we need to dream of that. We are working also. So thank you.
Very beautifully summed up. And Dr. Rose, would you like to say something?
Yes, we are definitely after quality assurance and transparency in higher education. We are after strategic internationalization and student mobility. So everyone, because we believe this is really enriching. As I said, we are after educational attainment, but also retention and completion. This is a very strong pillar which we are working on. We want teaching to be relevant and to the needs of the students and of the times. We are after more adult learning, opening opportunities for everyone to be able to pursue further studying. So obviously we are exploiting emerging opportunities for everyone to be able to continue with education, which want to be relevant. Leading, even creating more awareness about the green economy, about skills which are necessary. So I would sum it up in relevant education for all. I think that would sum it up.
Thank you so much for those valuable discussion today, and very beautifully summed up by Lily and Dr. Rose, both of you. It was wonderful interacting with you and discussion today. Rekha, would you like to have some concluding questions, answers from your end to some of this discussion?
No, thank you very much. But maybe one, because I think Rose Ann didn't get the chance to answer the ranking question, if you want to, the ranking in SDGs.
Pardon?
So I had the question on the ranking and the SDGs, whether you're using the ranking as a policy tool. You didn't get.
No, we don't. We don't use ranking, no.
Okay.
But as I said, Malta is so small that ranking comes, but not we rank. Automatically, institutions would need to offer good quality education because obviously of the huge competition. So although ranking is not there physically, it happens because students before choosing, they see the quality of the institution. So it comes in a natural way, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you so much.
Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Meghun, do you have any burning questions, final concluding word before we can disperse the group?
Yeah, thank you so much. Very interesting discussion. Thank you so much to Roseanne for the PowerPoint. We definitely will use this as a reference. Thank you for presenting it and for sharing these documents. Thank you also to Attorney Lily. If you don't mind, I am quite interested in the documents you mentioned. And if you do send them our way, we will definitely appreciate it. And I'm sure it can contribute to our written work as well, and possibly be featured in our studies, which will we are working on. So that might be of interest to you as well. I did notice that the discussions were gravitating towards internationalization, quality assurance. Like from one question though, is there a way that, what do you think is like the general role of the Sustainable Development Goals? Is it for the Philippines, for example, you mentioned that it is used at times as a reference. So I think that applies in these both cases. But is there a way that the SDGs play a stronger role into whole pushing ministries a more explicit presence of SDGs in policies, or currently it is used as a reference, as a benchmark? I'm not saying that's not enough or that's wrong, but just to see the full scale of the impact of the SDGs. Additionally, would you say that you've been working on these higher education policy to promote employability, innovation, technology prior or regardless of the SDGs? These are more of curiosities that came about. Maybe just short, if possible, because I know you've given a lot of time already. Thank you.
I think SDGs are always in the background. We can't ignore them. So I think I strongly believe, actually, not I think, that policies should be built against I mean, against, in the sense, in collaboration with the SDGs, for sure, for sure.
When I mentioned, Miguel, about the reference, I mean it in terms of it's a reference, their performance on the impact rankings, because that in itself already is data that we can look into and use as a reference as we build on better policies and programs. That's how I reference it. So and that is very important for us, the data, so that we could now also see where we can really champion some efforts. In the Philippines, CHED is expected to deliver on SDG 4, on SDG 17, and I think the SDG on decent work, those aspects. Okay, so I do not have the numbers yet on this one, but I think we have initiated so many. We have established many programs along with other agencies. If I may mention, like the Philippine Skills Framework, we get to work with the DTI, the Innovation Agenda. So we get to work with the DTI so that we can have better manpower with the right skills also fitted for some priority industries in the Philippines. So that will address the SDG on this report. So the SDG it should be a driver for us. It's a driver for us. And goal also is to have our universities, they become SDG enabled. I strongly believe that the universities are they are the right partners. They are the drivers of many of our SDGs. They have it. They have the research. They have the policy, the research, the extension function, and of course the instruction, the teaching function that can sustain all of this.
Thank you so much for the response and for your valuable time.
All right, thank you very much. Again, Attorney Lily, Dr. Rose, very insightful discussion. Also, thank you to Anumoni for facilitating the focus group discussion. We hope to stay in touch. It looks like our colleagues will probably meet each other either in Malta or in Singapore for the Going Global Conference. I think Attorney Lily will be visiting, so please do stop by the office if schedule permits. And until next time, thank you very much.
Thank you too.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Thank
So,
you.
bye-bye.
Salamat.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.